Section 1. A Union in Peril, Trump's Executive Order. On March 27, 2025, President Trump dropped a bombshell. He signed an executive order. This order effectively dismantles collective bargaining rights for many federal workers. The order sent shockwaves through the nation. It marked a significant escalation in Trump's ongoing battle with federal unions. The order immediately sparked outrage and confusion. Critics denounced it as an assault on workers' rights. Supporters praised it as a necessary step. They claimed it was needed to streamline government and bolster national security. The executive order represents a pivotal moment. It could redefine the relationship between the federal government and its employees. It also raises profound questions about the future of organized labor in the United States. The order's long-term consequences remain to be seen. Section 2. National security or political ploy. The Trump administration justified the executive order on national security grounds. They emphasized that the safety and security of the nation were paramount, and that any measures taken were in the best interest of the American people. The administration's officials repeatedly stressed that the executive order was a necessary step to ensure that the government could function without any hindrances. They argued that collective bargaining agreements hindered the government's ability to operate efficiently. According to them, these agreements created bureaucratic red tape that slowed down decision-making processes and made it difficult to implement swift actions in times of crisis. The administration believed that removing these obstacles was crucial for maintaining national security. They claimed these agreements hampered their ability to respond to threats. The administration pointed out that in a rapidly changing global landscape, the ability to adapt and respond quickly was essential. They argued that the existing agreements with unions were outdated and did not reflect the current security needs of the nation. The White House released a statement. In it, they detailed the reasons behind the executive order and reiterated their commitment to national security. The statement highlighted the importance of having a streamlined and efficient government workforce that could act decisively in the face of threats. It said the order was essential to prevent unions from interfering with national security missions. The administration maintained that the presence of unions in critical government functions posed a risk to the nation's safety. They believed that by limiting the influence of unions, they could better protect the country. Critics were quick to point out the order's timing. They noted that the executive order was issued just months into Trump's second term, raising questions about its true intent. Many saw it as a strategic move to weaken the power of federal unions, which had been vocal opponents of the administration's policies. It came just months into Trump's second term. This timing led to widespread speculation about the motivations behind the order. Critics argued that it was less about national security and more about consolidating power and silencing dissent within the federal workforce. This led many to believe the order was politically motivated. The administration's critics saw it as a calculated effort to undermine the influence of unions, which had been a thorn in the side of the Trump administration since its first term. They saw it as retaliation against federal unions. These unions had been at the forefront of challenging many of Trump's policies, and the executive order was perceived as a way to weaken their power and influence. These unions had challenged many of Trump's policies during his first term. They had been vocal in their opposition and had used their collective bargaining power to push back against the administration's agenda. The administration's national security claims were met with skepticism. Many experts and analysts questioned the validity of the administration's arguments, pointing out that there was little evidence to support the notion that unions were a threat to national security. Critics argued that there was no evidence to support the notion that unions were hindering national security. They pointed to the lack of concrete examples or data that demonstrated how unions had negatively impacted the government's ability to protect the nation. They pointed to the long history of cooperation between federal unions and the government. This history, they argued, showed that unions and the government could work together effectively without compromising national security. This cooperation, they argued, had kept the country safe for decades. The critics believed that the executive order was an unnecessary and politically motivated move that would do more harm than good. Section 3. The agencies affected, a nation on hold. The executive order has far-reaching consequences. It affects a wide range of federal agencies. These include the Departments of Defense, Veterans Affairs, State, Treasury, Energy, and Justice. It also impacts parts of commerce, homeland security, and health and human services. The order effectively strips collective bargaining rights from millions of federal workers. These workers are now left in limbo. They are unsure of their rights and protections. The order has thrown these agencies into disarray. It has led to confusion and uncertainty among employees. The order's impact extends beyond the affected agencies. It has sent shockwaves through the entire federal workforce. It has left many workers feeling vulnerable and uncertain about their futures. Section 4. The Union's Roar, a Cry for Justice. The American Federation of Government Employees, or AFGE, is the largest federal workers' union. They condemn the executive order. AFGE President Everett Kelly called it an attack on democracy and worker rights. Other unions echoed Kelly's sentiments. The AFL-CIO vowed to fight the order. They characterized it as retaliation for legal challenges against the administration. The unions argue that the order violates federal law. They have vowed to challenge it in court. The unions are preparing for a protracted legal battle. They are confident that they will prevail. They believe the courts will ultimately strike down the executive order. Section 5. Beyond the bargaining table, a nation divided. In recent times, the nation has found itself at a crossroads, grappling with the implications of a controversial executive order. The executive order's impact extends far beyond the bargaining table. It has sparked a wave of protests and demonstrations across the country, with people from all walks of life voicing their concerns and opinions. It has ignited a national debate about the role of unions in American society. This debate is not just confined to the streets but has also found its way into public squares, town halls, and even family dinner tables. It has also raised concerns about the erosion of worker rights. Many fear that the order could undermine decades of progress made in securing fair treatment and protections for workers. Supporters of the order argue that it is necessary to rein in unions. They believe that unions have overstepped their boundaries and have become too influential in both the political and economic spheres. They claim unions have become too powerful. According to them, the unchecked power of unions stifles innovation and economic growth, making it difficult for businesses to thrive. They say unions stand in the way of progress. By imposing stringent regulations and demands, unions are seen as obstacles to modernization and efficiency. They believe the order will lead to a more efficient and accountable government. By reducing union influence, they argue, the government can operate more smoothly and respond more effectively to the needs of its citizens. Opponents of the order counter that unions are essential to a fair and just society. They see unions as the backbone of worker rights and protections, ensuring that employees are treated with dignity and respect. They argue that unions give workers a voice. Without unions, they fear that workers would be left vulnerable to exploitation and abuse by employers. They say unions protect workers from exploitation. Unions are seen as a necessary counterbalance to corporate power, advocating for fair wages, safe working conditions, and reasonable hours. They fear the order will create a race to the bottom. By weakening unions, they argue, the order could lead to a downward spiral in wages and working conditions, harming not just union members, but all workers. They believe it will erode wages and working conditions for all Americans. The debate continues to rage on, with both sides passionately defending their positions and the future of the nation's workforce hanging in the balance. Section 6. Echoes of the Past. The 1978 Reform Act. The executive order has its roots in the Civil Service Reform Act of 1978. This act governs labor relations in the federal government. The act allows the president to exclude certain agencies from federal labor laws. This can be done for national security reasons. Trump's order significantly expands the list of agencies exempt from these laws. It now includes agencies like the Environmental Protection Agency, the National Science Foundation, and the Federal Communications Commission. Critics argue that this expansion is a gross overreach of executive power. They claim it sets a dangerous precedent. Section 7. Musk's Efficiency Crusade, a $1 trillion gamble. The executive order is part of a broader effort. This effort aims to reshape the federal government. This initiative is being overseen by Elon Musk. Musk is the CEO of Tesla and SpaceX. He now heads the Department of Government Efficiency. Musk aims to cut the federal deficit by $1 trillion. He plans to reduce spending by $4 billion daily. His plans include significant cuts to federal agencies. He also wants to streamline government operations. Musk's involvement has raised concerns about privatization. Critics worry that he will seek to outsource government functions to private companies. They fear this will lead to job losses and a decline in the quality of government services. Section 8. Texas Showdown, the legal battle begins. The executive order faces numerous legal challenges. One of the most significant is a lawsuit filed in Texas. This lawsuit was filed by affected government agencies against federal employee unions. The government argues that existing collective bargaining agreements hinder executive branch functions. They say these agreements jeopardize national security. They contend that the Biden administration improperly extended these agreements for 5 years after Trump's November election victory. They also raise concerns about return-to-work policies. The lawsuit seeks to rescind these agreements. This would deal a significant blow to federal unions. It would leave millions of workers without collective bargaining rights. Section 9. A harbinger of things to come? The executive order's long-term effects remain to be seen. While some argue it could streamline government operations, others fear it may undermine the stability of public sector employment. However, one thing is certain. It represents a significant turning point in the relationship between the federal government and its employees. This shift could redefine how public servants interact with their employers and the expectations placed upon them. The order could have a chilling effect on union organizing. Unions, which have long been a cornerstone of worker rights, may find it increasingly difficult to advocate for their members. It could embolden other employers to take similar action against their own workers. This ripple effect might extend beyond the public sector, influencing private companies to adopt more stringent measures. The order could usher in a new era of labor relations. This era might be characterized by a shift in power dynamics, where employers hold more sway over the terms and conditions of employment. This new era could be marked by diminished worker power and increased corporate influence. Workers may find themselves with fewer avenues to voice their concerns and negotiate for better conditions. The fight over the executive order is about more than just collective bargaining rights. It touches on fundamental issues of fairness, representation, and the role of government in protecting its workforce. It is about the future of American democracy. The way this conflict is resolved could set a precedent for how democratic principles are upheld in the workplace. It is about the balance of power between workers and corporations. This balance is crucial for ensuring that neither side can dominate the other, maintaining a fair and just working environment. It is a fight that will have profound implications for generations to come. The decisions made today will shape the landscape of labor relations and worker rights for years, impacting not just current employees but future generations as well.